Welcome to One Little Coder. This week in AI news, we have got a lot of interesting aspects. So let's get started. First of all, we have got Claude Pro. So they're going in the same route as OpenAI with a new paid plan. And before even I go into the news, the first thing that put me off is that this is currently available in the US and UK. I still do not understand the entire logic of companies launching a product when they claim to be a global company and launch something in the US and UK. I don't have to find VPN to test out this product. This is very clearly disappointing, but anyways, this is the world that we live in. Claude Pro subscribers, which is they have to pay like $20 US or 18 US UK pound. They are going to get 5k more usage of the latest model that they've got, Claude 2. The good thing with Claude is that you get longer context. A lot of people are using Claude for the same reason, because you get longer context window than OpenAI's ChatGPT with GPT-4. So this is, I wouldn't say necessarily better than GPT-4, but if you are somebody who always has to upload a long document and get some response, Claude Pro seems to be an interesting option. Once again, I'm purely disappointed that this is available only in the US and UK. There is a new startup called Imbue. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Imbue raises $200 million to build their own systems that can reason on code. So according to Imbue, the problem that current large language models possess is that these models are not able to reason, or they're not very optimized for reasoning. So what Imbue is trying to do is they are trying to create a model with the first objective is that these models should be able to reason, and these models should be ultimately used as AI agents. So formerly known as general intelligence, Imbue is trying to build computers or build systems that can help us do anything. So that's kind of their a mission. If you see, they say that our North Star is truly personal computers that give us the freedom, dignity, and agency to do what we love. I'll link this video in the YouTube description so you can check it out, what Imbue's founder is actually talking about. But interestingly, what they want to do is they want to train their own large language model, and the foundation or the funding that they have got is going to help them set the foundation with more than 10,000 H100 clusters. This is once again Silicon Valley flexing its GPU power, but as you can see, that is what they're trying to do. And as they build large language models, they want to also build agents and see how these agents perform. So this is a very agent first LLM approach, and I'm quite interested to see what they come up with. And obviously the news of the week is Falcon 180 billion parameter model from TII, from UAE Abu Dhabi specialist to be precise. So Falcon 180 billion parameter model is a huge model trained on 3.5 trillion tokens of refined web data set. So a lot of people, when I made Falcon 180 billion parameter video, I made a criticism saying that this is using a lot of compute but gained only 1% on benchmarks with respect to Llama 2. And a lot of people actually came and said that, you are looking at large language model only from a perspective of benchmark, that it could be more than that. It could be better at reasoning. And since then, I think I kind of started appreciating the fact that maybe, okay, it's good that we have a large language model. So 180 billion parameter open access model, it has got a slightly strange licensing. But anyways, this is a model that currently outperforms Llama 2, Stable LM, Red Pajama, MPT, and all these things. It has an architecture that is optimized for licensing, and it has got a slightly, like I said, a strange license in itself. They've released two models. One is the Falcon 180 billion parameter model. The second one is the 180 billion chat model that is quite suitable for chat. I'll link my own video in the YouTube description so you understand what are the details that are available there. Launch of Falcon 180 billion parameter model. There have been a lot of attempts, a lot of experiments, a lot of hacks that people have been trying to run this on consumer hardware, because these models take a lot of machines. It's not even one single GPU that you can run on. It requires huge amount of memory. But fortunately, the founder of Llama CPP and who created Whisper CPP and all these quantized, all these C++ models, so we have got he managed to run the 180 billion parameter model on M2 Ultra, Apple M2 Ultra. Following that, in the same thread, somebody mentioned that they managed to run CPU only with 8 GB RAM at 1.18 tokens per second. It was quite surprising, and it also gives the instruction about how you can run it, how you can build it and run it. And the person said 4 GB RAM is the usage that they've mentioned. If you see the whole memory, 4 GB is the usage that they have mentioned, and many people came and commented saying that you should actually check the cache in itself, and then the person acknowledged that the cache is like, huge, like the cache is being occupied more. So the point is, definitely you cannot run it on a 4 GB machine, but again, it's very interesting to see people experimenting with this, finding out new ways and hacks to see how you can run it on consumer hardware. Building a full stack LLM app or AI app is still not a very easy task. A lot of people are trying to figure out how to set up the entire full stack. Thanks to LlamaIndex, they have put together a nice repository that they call as SEC Insights. It's an application where the application is hosted already, but it's a repo, a free MIT licensed repo that you can use to build your own full stack application in the real world. So the stack, if you see the stack, the front end is React and Next, and with Tailwind CSS, and the back end has got a bunch of items including Fast API, Docker, SQL Alchemy, OpenAI for definitely for APIs, and PG Vector as a vector database, and LlamaIndex. And you've got the infra from Vercel, AWS, Render. So you can see the details in here. The code actually looks like a starter code that you can use it. You can also go click this link and then play with the real product in itself. As you can see, I did my own testing. So you can go here, select a company, and you can select a document, and then you can ask questions from it. So it's a very, very interesting aspect, and it's good to see that you have got like you've got like an open source project that is easy for you to start with. So if you were ever planning to launch an AI product that does like RAG capabilities, retrieval augmented generation, where you can upload a document and ask question, I think this is the best resource for you to start with. We've got one more nice model that is called Persimmon 8 billion parameter model. So it's an open source model from a company called Adept. I keep on reading this permission, don't read this permission. It is Persimmon 8 billion parameter model. So the company is claiming that this is a fully permissively open source language model, large language model, and it has got some nice details to it. So you can download the code and the model weights from this GitHub repository. And you can also see that, it has got some nice details. One being like, first of all, fully open source and a permissive license with Apache license for maximum flexibility. And they have trained it from scratch using a context size of 16K. That means it's a 16K context window model. So it's a less than 10 billion parameter, but still 16,000 context window, which is good. And they said that while the model has been trained on only with 37 times as much or 37 times smaller data than Llama 2, it matches the Llama 2 performance. So it has seen lesser data, but it matches with Llama 2, which is something that I'm happy but also skeptical about. So the model uses 70,000 unused embeddings for multimodal extensions and sparse activations, and you have like the inference code that they are releasing. It combines the speed of C++ implementation, fast transformer, with the flexibility of native Python inference. So you've got all the details in here. They're also sharing some benchmarks that they use, the values that you can see. So if you see the model in a one-shot setting, if you compare MPT 7 billion, Llama 2 7 billion, Persimmon 8 billion FT model, so you can see that Persimmon 8 billion FT model does really good. And even the base model in itself, if you see, it does a decent job matching with, Llama 2. So I'm quite surprised to see this thing, and I'm also quite happy that this exists. So I'm definitely looking forward to try this out separately. Let me know in the comment section what do you feel about this. India's Reliance partners with NVIDIA to build its own large language model specifically for India. So if you're not familiar with Reliance, it's a huge conglomerate. So they have disrupted multiple industries, including broadband, including telecom, and it is probably a good thing and also probably like a bad thing, because they are almost like monopoly in any industry that they get into, and they disrupt a lot. But it also makes it very simple, cheap, and easier for consumers to access that. So for both NVIDIA, because that will give them penetration inside Indian market, which is one of the largest consumer market available in the world. Jensen Huang, co-founder of NVIDIA, has said, we are delighted to partner with Reliance to build state-of-the-art AI supercomputers in India. Of course, they'll be delighted, right? Because they're going to make a lot of money. But anyways, this seems like an interesting news for people who love Indian products made within India. Next few items are purely going to be about papers. So if you're not a fan of papers, you can skip this section. But anyways, one interesting thing that I saw, which is not entirely new, if you see this paper came on 6th April 2023, is to use large language models as recommendation engines, so like zero-shot next item recommendation engine. And when I looked at it, I started researching further on this topic, and I also came across this nice blog post that also gives you code and a lot of other details about how you can use large language models as recommendation engine. I don't know how many of you know, but like long ago, many years ago, Netflix ran a recommendation engine competition that made machine learning quite popular in the world, and it had like a huge price, like $1 million or something. And in the same line, it seems like it is quite fitting to see that large language models can be used as recommendation engine. And you can see some examples, like, okay, you've got the example input and then you've got the example output, and you can see how they are trying to combine GPT-3 and other models to make zero-shot recommendation task. Like, it will recommend you certain things. And it's an interesting aspect as well, because recommendation engines traditionally have this cold start problem. Like, if you sign up for Netflix for the first time, how do you think Netflix could recommend you the best one if they don't know anything about you? But it seems like large language model could help them solve the problem by just asking for few preferences. But anyways, this is a very interesting aspect where you can use large language models as recommendation engine, and I'll link the blog post as well in the YouTube description for you to play with it and then see how does it go. So the next one is a paper from DeepMind that just recently came out, so where you can use large language models as optimizers. And it's not just this paper. I saw a couple of more papers where you can use large language models as different things. But this paper specifically talks about how do you use large language models, or the benefits of using large language models as optimizers. If you're not familiar with optimizers, if you have ever studied linear programming, this is again like a very old stuff. Like, people don't use that a lot. But many years ago, like when you had to do like certain machine learning or certain things, like you always had to manually specify optimizers. Even now, people use Adam optimizer and a lot of these optimizers that come pre-built with the libraries that you use. But in the age of linear programming, you had to use optimization techniques to solve a lot of problems. Like, for example, there is a factory. The factory has got a particular set of shift. There are X amount of employees. How do you match the employees with the shift in such a way that the efficiency and the production is high? This is an optimization problem, and people used to use linear programming for this. So in a similar fashion, that's how, large language models are built. That's how deep learning models are built. That's how machine learning models are built. So optimizers are ubiquitous, and it is a very important item in a lot of algorithms that are defined. So what this paper is doing is, this paper is trying to take LLMs and make them as optimizers. And what they are proposing is something called optimization by prompting, OPRO. Optimization by prompting. And they have tested it with linear regression. They have tested it with traveling salesman problem, which is like the classical computer problem. And they've done a lot of attempts to see how large language models as optimizers would perform. Once again, it's very good to see a paper from DeepMind, and I'm definitely looking forward to see the products like Google Gemini from DeepMind. But the fact that you can use large language models for different things than what it is built for makes me excited. So I'll link the paper here in the YouTube description for you to play with. The next paper is called SLIME. SLIME stands for segment like me. So this paper explores a concept of, can you take one single image and annotate that image with various granularities, and can you have like a model that can do image segmentation for you? And that's exactly what this paper is doing. As you can see the picture, so there is one dog, one picture, but different granularities, and the segmentation is done. And then you use SLIME to do segmentation for different images that it has not seen, and it seems to be working fine, and that's why this paper has come out. So this is an interesting aspect. Why? Because even SLIME frames this problem as an optimization task, very similar like the paper that we saw. But instead of using like a language model in itself, they're using a stable diffusion, which is like a vision language model, like a combination of vision and language. And they have figured out that they can use SLIME to segment any real world image during inference with the granularity of segmented region in the training image, with just like one example in itself. So this is another interesting aspect, and they also want to see, they also try to see how SLIME outperforms other existing one-shot and few-shot segmentation methods. If you are wondering why image segmentation is very important, whether it is self-driving car, whether it is cancer detection, whether it is building a VR or AR solution, image segmentation plays a very important role for the AI to understand what are the objects that are present in a given image or a scene. And it seems to see the innovation coming out in the age of stable diffusion, particularly for image segmentation, is quite an interesting aspect to see. This one is something that we have already covered on the channel, but it is still worth mentioning, which is RLAIF, scaling reinforcement learning from human feedback with AI feedback. Reinforcement learning from human feedback is considered to be one of the hallmarks or holy grails of the large language model era, where humans are being asked to rate the output of large language models, and then those outputs are used to fine tune or optimize this large language model using reinforcement learning. But now what this paper is trying to say, again from Google, is that you don't have to have human feedback. Probably you can replace this human with AI and call that RLAIF, reinforcement learning from AI feedback, and that is also much better than having a baseline supervised fine-tuning SFT model or instruct fine-tune model. This paper gets into a lot of details which I absolutely loved. I made a separate video about it which I'll link it in the YouTube description for you to check it out. Every day there is some new large language model coming up and everybody is quite excited about it. But what if you have to prepare or build a new large language model completely from scratch? And that is exactly what this paper explores. It's called FLM 101 billion parameter model. So it's an open LLM and how to train it with 100K budget. This is a paper once again coming from China, so I'm excited to see what is in that. And they have given the model in itself for you to use it, the model checkpoints. And they're also going to tell you, like give you suggestions or techniques how this model can be or was trained in a budget of 100K. That also achieves like really good performance. So you spend lesser money than all these bigger companies, and you build like a huge model that is greater than 100 billion parameters, but also the model does good. And that's the gist of this paper. And if you are working for a very big corporation and you've got like money like 100,000 and you want to build 100,000 US dollar to be specific, and you want to build like your own large language model from scratch, no fine tuning, nothing else. Like if you want to do it starting from the very bare bones, like minimum, this paper could actually help you with that, and while also reducing the money that it might take you to build it. Finally, in the world of LLMs, there is a new benchmark that has been released. It's not like a very popular benchmark because benchmarks are quite hard to understand. What this person or the company that is building an open source observability tool called LLM Monitor is doing is they built a set of questions, 20 questions, and they ask these 20 questions to 60 plus LLMs, and it kind of gives you the answer. Like for every question you can go see the result, and they've also categorized the question into certain characteristics like reflection, knowledge, code, and they went on and done this thing for all the 60 LLMs, and they've also shared the details about all these things. This was quite interesting for me to see, like something that I was planning to do. I was trying to do in fact with Falcon 180 billion and GPT-4. But what was interesting for me with this is I took this question. So this question was Sally, a girl, has 3 brothers. Each brother has 2 sisters. And how many sisters does Sally have? Let's think step by step. So when I went to this result, they said correct answer is 1. And if you see, none of this model actually gave the right answer. Everything said 2 sisters, 6 sisters, and everything had a mistake. And GPT-4 actually did the good job. Like except GPT-4, you would not see anything doing a good job, like especially open source world. Very surprisingly, I pasted the same question on Falcon 180 billion parameter model and it solved it correctly. It gave me the answer 1 along with the reason why it is 1. So that made me kind of respect Falcon 180 billion parameter model more than what I was doing it. So yeah, this is quite an interesting way to approach LLM benchmarks, and definitely check it out. Now we are going to cruise through a bunch of news. OpenAI has got its first developer conference. It seems like OpenAI is doing everything right to make developers love them. So OpenAI is doing a developer conference on November 6th in San Francisco. It's an in-person attendance or in-person conference, and they might also live stream the event or probably share the videos, but right now it's an in-person conference. So if you want to attend or anything, you can just click this link devday.openai.com and sign up to receive notification. I'm a big fan of AI in the real world, and it seems like eBay has struck a nice gold with this. So they've introduced a new feature called magical listing tool, which is going to help you create the listing just by the image. So if you upload an image, what eBay has done is they can read this image and they can actually understand what is in that image, and they can finally let the AI write the rest of the piece. Like it's a very simple image captioning system, like if you are an AI developer, but under the hood it seems like it's productionized at scale, and you can also see the details about how this is helping people. So you can upload an image, it can read the image, it can come up with a description, and it can create the listing for you. Everything powered by AI. If you are a fan of AI in the healthcare, you might love this news. Page announced a collaboration with Microsoft to build the world's largest image-based AI model to fight cancer. So Page is a company that's a technology disruptor in healthcare. I'm not very familiar with that. So they are combining with Microsoft or collaborating with Microsoft to build like a large image-based AI model to predict or fight cancer. This is an area that a lot of people are quite interested in. I know for sure, like there have been like a couple of Kaggle competitions where you could, the competition was you should predict pneumonia from X-rays, you predict this from that, you predict cancer from skin's image. And this seems like an interesting thing, especially in the world of large language models and huge compute. It seems like Microsoft might do good in this space, and let's see if it can actually fight cancer and save lives. While I love AI in the real world, I'm not a big fan of military and government using AI, but it seems inevitable. So Pentagon is looking to develop a fleet of AI drone systems to combat China. I mean, that's a very sensational headline. But if you see what they're trying to do is they're trying to have like an AI powered fleet of drones and autonomous systems that the officials argue that will allow US to compete with and counter threats from China. And they are also saying that we are not at war, we are not seeking to be at war, but we have to be able to get this department with the same kind of urgency because PRC isn't waiting. I don't know. I just recently watched Oppenheimer's trailer and I remember seeing a very similar line in the trailer. So anyways, Pentagon is looking to integrate AI deep into the existing systems, especially drones and autonomous systems. I'm not sure what kind of implications it might have in the larger universal world, but yeah, it's inevitable ultimately. Next one is a very fun web application. So it says GPT-4 capability forecasting challenge. Like you need to predict whether GPT-4 can predict that or not, or what is the likelihood of prediction. I kind of liked it, to be honest. Like for example, it says the question is what is the capital of France? And you need to, as a human, you need to say whether GPT-4 can predict this or not. So I'm very sure that GPT-4 can predict. And you can say, okay, are you right? Ask GPT-4 and GPT-4 predicted correctly. So the next one, you can go to the next one and then say, okay, whether GPT-4 can solve this or not. So this is a very fun exercise. You can do this thing if you have got time and then understand where GPT-4 is good and where do you think GPT-4 is good. This is something that I've been missing to make a video about like since last couple of weeks. It's called prompt to model. So it says you can generate deployable models just from instructions. So this is like another like an agent system or autonomous AI system. So it's a system that takes natural language descriptions like commands that you give, and it uses large language models like ChatGPT to train like a small purpose model that is something that you can deploy and it can do things for you. So the demo is available for you to try it out. The collab notebook is available. I'm definitely looking forward to try this out and make like a dedicated video. But you can see, like for example, it has a question. You can describe the task, what it want to do, and it is going to start doing it. If you are a fan of the Auto GPT era, probably this is something that you should definitely try it out, and I think you might be interested in what it does and how it does. And like I said, like it's my bad that I completely forgot making a video about it. I'm definitely looking forward to make a dedicated video. It would be completely an injustice if I did not cover this in the AI in the news. Open Interpreter is absolutely crushing in terms of trending, the number of stars that they receive, and all these things. What is Open Interpreter? Open Interpreter is supposedly an open source implementation of OpenAI's code interpreter, but I believe this is much more than that. Large language models run your computer. So you can instruct large language models to do certain things on your computer, not necessarily like a virtual sandbox. And they're also working on a desktop application for which you can gain early access. Currently, Open Interpreter does a lot of things, and you can see this absolutely amazing, mind-blowing demo. Open Interpreter also supports local models like Code Llama in this case. Somehow, unfortunately, I could not get the Code Llama work. That's why I did not put out a dedicated tutorial. I'm working on a separate tutorial for this using GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 that should be available shortly, like in a couple of days. But this is a very, very interesting approach to use autonomous agents or use large language models to do certain tasks to your computer. One thing is like the security is always a thing. Like you should always keep in mind that, giving access to AI to do anything on your computer might not be a good idea. And for that also there is a setting that you can enable to see that do you want to auto run everything or do you want to just ask for confirmation every time. But nevertheless, this is a brilliant product by Killian Lucas. So thanks to Killian for Open Interpreter. And thanks to you all for listening to this AI in the Week news. If you think that I have left out something interesting, let me know in the comment section, or if you have got any feedback for me, I'm definitely looking forward to improve my video week by week. See you in another video. Happy prompting.